Hello, we are live. I'm no longer muted. I see that we've got a few people joining in and already have a comment. So it's great to see you, Corel. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're happy to be live. And we hope that we see a lot of people who have been in the comments because we've been interacting with you all for quite a while, but we've never actually been live. So as we wait for people to come in, we're just going to sit around for like about a minute, but we can all say hi, as you all know, but maybe don't recognize without the black hair. I'm Holly Rhiannon. I'm your haunted host on the English side of things for the Haunted Montreal channel. I'm currently traveling. I'm in Romania right now, which is very appropriately dark, I find, though I do not bring the full wig setup with me while I'm traveling. So you get au naturel, and I'll pass it off to Dr. Mab to say hi.
Hi, Dr. Mab, je suis l'hôte pour les capsules en français, and I'm currently in Montreal, not traveling, and no wig either.
Yes, but an excellent setup. Mine is a little lacking in what I would usually have, but you can't be picky when you're in Airbnb. So moving on, we do have a special guest who you have not seen on the channel before. This is Donovan King. He is the mind behind Haunted Montreal. So if you want to say hi, Donovan.
Yes, hello everyone, and welcome to this live feed. This is the first time I've ever done a live feed, but essentially I write the blog, and then these talented folks convert it into video. So it's quite amazing. I publish a blog on the 13th of every month at hauntedmontreal.com in both English and French, and I think we're up to number 105 or something. So there's a lot of stories you can read, and of course you can also enjoy them on video.
Yeah, and not only that, but you do tours as well. So if you are living in Montreal or planning to travel to Montreal, I would highly recommend checking out the tours. You can hear live storytelling of some of the stories that we've posted on YouTube. And yeah, I mean, if you ever want to get spoilers on the channel, you can check out the blog too, and then see as we gradually put them out. It's so great to have all of these amazing works to get inspired by and to work with that Donovan has compiled. It's quite the project, and I know I'm probably speaking for Dr. Mab too when I say that we have so much fun with it.
We do.
So our plan here, we would like to answer some questions and interact with all of you, of course, but we will also be telling some stories, talking about Haunted Montreal. So as we are, 5-ish minutes in, I think, and we've done our intros, I would like everyone to just sort of talk about how we got involved in Haunted Montreal, or in Donovan's case, how all of this began. And I'll start it off. For me, I am originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, so I am not a natural Montrealer. I'm sorry. And when I moved to Montreal 9 years ago now, one of the things that really sort of welcomed me in, I found, and helped me get to learn more about the city was the Haunted Montreal tours. I've always been a spooky kid, and when I arrived, I was, looking for ways to see the city. There's so much history there, and when I found Haunted Montreal, I went on every single tour through October, and I did all of them, and I immediately started looking at, the social media pages and things like that, what was going on online. And after, I guess it was a couple years, maybe a year or two after that first experience with the tours, I thought, I had started on YouTube, and I thought this would be a great collaboration. I don't know if they would allow this kind of thing or would want to collaborate on it, but luckily I reached out to Donovan, and he was very open, with the caveat that we have French and English. So this leads into Dr. Mab.
Yeah, I actually knew Holly from a writing group, and she sent out a call saying, anybody want to do French YouTube for Haunted Montreal? And I thought, hey, that sounds great. I love ghosts. There I was, reading and talking about ghosts.
Yeah, and it combines our joint interests quite well, because we have spooky stuff, and we've got, you know, the creative written element in there too, and yeah. So on to Donovan. How did all of this get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. It all started in 1992, and back then I was pretty much a young aspiring actor and teacher. I was studying drama and education at Concordia, and I was also hooking up a lot of actors with different gigs. We were doing things like training police officers through role play, and evacuating hospitals through role play for the firemen and things like that. And so I came across a very interesting project. Bob Short, who won the Oscar for special effects in Beetlejuice, had set up this gigantic haunted house in Montreal called the Chateau Greystoke. In De Carey Square, this kind of old half-empty shopping mall, and he brought trainloads of like props, costumes, special effects, lighting, sets, etc. But his problem was he didn't speak French, and he realized that, wow, this has to be bilingual, and so he was looking for someone to help. And he came across my name because, of course, I was doing this anyhow, sending bilingual actors to different places. And so I set him up, got him all his actors, and I also started acting in his haunted house. And I thought, oh my God, this is so much more fun than the regular theater, because in the regular theater, most of the time you're sitting in a green room, you're waiting to go on stage, you have to memorize this script, you have to be blocked, whatever. For the haunted stuff, you can improvise, and you're kind of like always on, there's no downtime. And so I was really attracted to this idea as a type of performance. And so, I kind of followed it. Eventually I would move to London, England. I got a job at the London Dungeon, the largest museum of horror on earth. And, again, eventually I was put in charge of all of the actors and the entertainments. And so this is really how I sort of got into this genre. When I got back home to Montreal, I started working for a company called Hauntedmontreal, Montreal, or Montreal Ghosts. And this was the walking tours. And so I worked with them for about 15 years. And then I decided to start my own, because I thought, I can do, a better job in a sense, because, I'm also trained as a historian and history teacher. And, their scripts were, they just sort of bought it off some actor who created it. So it wasn't like a lot of depth to it. And so I wanted to really, show a bit of mastery and embrace my passion. And so I started my own. And that was about probably 15 years ago, I think, Haunted Montreal. And since then, we've just been rolling with it. And it's been, a great experience. I mean, sure, there's been a lot of ups and downs. Once I got burnt out because I had to do like everything, but now it's running very smoothly, and I'm very happy with the team I have and the support I have, and it's great. So yeah, thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. I mean, I'm so happy to be a part of this. I love what you're doing, and the history behind it, like how long you've been doing this, is just crazy. And I think that the passion really comes through with all of the blogs that you put out, and just your presence online and everything. We have a couple little comments here from Harley. Hello to Harley. Recognize your name. Thank you for the congrats. I did mean to mention that we didn't manage to do a live stream for 1K, so we thought, let's do one for 1.5K. Because we did have some requests, and we've been wanting to for a while, but with with everything going on with everyone, it can be hard to organize. And Dominic is awesome. That's one of the other tours. If you want to talk about it a little bit, Donovan, I think that's something that is very unique to Haunted Montreal, just from what I've seen with the walking tours, what Dominic does.
Absolutely, yeah. So like when I first started, I did a tour on the mountain, And then eventually, you know, Griffintown, downtown, Old Montreal, a haunted pub crawl. But a lot of the clients were asking, well, how come you don't have a paranormal investigation? And I said, well, I'm not really a paranormal kind of guy. I'm more of an actor, historian kind of guy. I said, but I'll look into it. And so I did a lot of research. We did a prototype of a paranormal investigation at the Notman House, which is super creepy. Like this furnace in the basement. They used to burn bodies because it was like this infectious hospital. And I got all of these like paranormal investigators, you know, the top ones at this event. And it was kind of crazy, you know. I mean, they were showing me videos that they'd taken of orbs floating around and stuff like this. And I thought, this is amazing. But again, I'm not an expert. And so I decided I'm going to try to do this in Dorchester Square, which is the old St. Antoine Cholera Cemetery. And at first I had about 3 or 4 different people doing it. And eventually Dominique Desormeaux proved himself to be the most reliable, the best person of all. And so he's been doing it ever since. He does it in both French and English. And he's actually starting a new tour, paranormal investigation called Colonial Old Montreal. And in these tours, it's for the clients who really want to have a more interactive experience with these spirits. And so they get all these tools, temperature guns, EVP readers, dowsing rods, you know, all of this stuff, all of this gear, and they learn how to use it under the expert guidance of Dominique Desormeaux, who really is probably the biggest expert in Montreal, in my opinion. And so, you know, it's for people who love those programs like Rencontre Paranormal or TAPS, ghost hunting, or whatever. And so it's a different type of experience, but one certain people love, especially the true believers. The skeptics, maybe not as much. But, you know, for that, like we have our regular tours, which anyone can enjoy, even if they're a skeptic, because it's full of history. You know, it's we have our ghost stories, but there's real deranged history behind that that's equally interesting. And so that's kind of how we try to cater to everyone.
Yeah, and that's one of my favorite parts as well with Haunted Montreal, just that, you know, it's not just the spooky stuff, although that's so fun, but it's also history. You learn so much. And Donovan and I were just talking before we went live actually about how, you know, and like I said earlier, now when I walk around Montreal, I know so much more than I would have had I not been reading the blogs.
Yeah, and you start walking around and saying, "Oh, that's haunted. That's haunted."
Yeah, exactly. Like I know the story behind all these things.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeffrey, by the way, just quick hi to Jeffrey. Thanks for stopping in.
Hello.
Very spooky night shift.
I was talking to one of our listeners, and she was saying that that's what she likes. It's the history behind all those ghosts or weird happenings, the history behind the building and everything.
And I think it's also important to note that, like, the history that's taught here, you know, say in high school, for example, which is that's mostly what people get. It doesn't mention so much, you know. It doesn't mention any Indigenous history, really, for example. It doesn't mention the fact that in New France there was horrific forms of torture or slavery, or, you know, so that there's a real whitewashing of history in general. And so I think when we delve deeper into that history, we can see why these places are actually very haunted, because we don't really hear this history very often. And so I like to really put it out there to teach people the true history that isn't taught in schools.
Yeah, and I think a really good example of that actually is the recent video that we just put out this morning.
Yeah,
with, Fleur de la Montagne, which I think left us on kind of a strong note for our month off in July. That's such a great one, because you see how, like, you know, Marguerite Bourgeois, who has all these accolades and stuff, the real story of what she was actually doing in Montreal.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole school service center named after her, you know, and statues, museums. She's a saint, you know, all of this. But in reality, if we look at her goal, it was to convert Indigenous people to Catholicism, which of course we know now as cultural genocide. And so that really needs to be looked at more carefully, because it's kind of shocking that she's still celebrated in so many ways when in fact her mission was very nefarious.
Absolutely. Gabriel went to the cemetery last night and stumbled on our video about it. I love seeing stuff like this. It's my favorite when someone comes along and they're like, I was there and something happened to me, or like, now I know so much more about it and I have to go back, right?
You look at it differently.
Yeah. So, one more here, Harley. Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to get into some stories. We've got that on the list, and also let me just say now, like whenever we say in the videos that we want to hear your stories, that like we really do, we really want to hear your stories, and we've got some amazing stuff in the comments before. And the main thing is to please reach out to Donovan at the Haunted Montreal address, info@hauntedmontreal, because that's how you're gonna like really get in touch and be able to work through this and discuss with Donovan like other potential things that have happened on that site, and there might be a blog out of it in the end. So be sure to leave the comments, because we love reading them, but also like reach out to info@hauntedmontreal.com, because you're gonna help add to this awesome project.
Yeah, and we get a lot of our stories from individuals who just email me and say, oh my God, my house is haunted. And, sometimes that means a visit from Dominique Desormeaux, who comes to try to establish what's going on. If there's a lot of, evidence, I might start doing historical research, and then eventually we'll make it into a blog. And then, of course, it'll be made into a video. So, yeah, if you have any stories in Montreal, because that's where we focus geographically, please do send them over.
Yep, that's the pipeline. I want to, speaking about, ghosts and history and our creative projects, I want to give the floor to Dr. Mab for a little bit, because he has a really cool project going on right now that we've been promoting on the Haunted Montreal page. And I just want to make sure you all know about it and can hear it right from his mouth.
Okay, it's called Ghosts of the City. Basically, it's an app that you can walk around the city, and if you come across like historical building or a haunted building, you can chat with the ghost that's linked to that building and interact and ask questions about their life or about the history of the building. So it's kind of a interactive, it's kind of a phone call from history, from history, and you can learn more. And it's I think it's a great way to discover more hidden parts of a city, and it's based on what we've been doing on Haunted Montreal. That's where it started, and it's an idea that can be applied to any city or any place that has history to it. And like I said, it's a more I'm gonna say relaxed way to just learn about the what it was like 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago here, or even more.
I would say not only relaxed, but sort of more interactive and more gamified, right? Because rather than sitting down and like reading a textbook or something, which I mean is great sometimes, but sometimes you want to be out and about and just go, that looks like a cool place. What happened there? So it lets you actually do that.
Yeah, and it's not just like reading a guidebook as you're walking down the street in Old Montreal. And you can even set it up that you're walking down and you get the call. Say, hey, check this place out. I lived here 150 years ago until I died of cholera, or they thought I was dead and buried me, which kind of sucks.
There's some of those out there. I mean, imagine hiking on the mountain and you get a phone call from Simon McTavish. Like that's what it
Inviting
allows you
you
to do.
to sled down the side of the mountain
Exactly.
Coffin.
So
in a coffin.
yeah, it's such a cool concept, and I don't think that the Kickstarter has gotten like quite the attention it deserves, because for me this is it's such an awesome idea. And when you came up with it, I was like, oh my, like how are you going to do that? And you put it together and had the trailer and everything so much faster than I expected. So like this is something that's ready to go, and like yeah.
Yeah, there's a prototype. The like it works, but it needs more information behind it and more a more sturdy platform, because you don't want to hang up on ghosts. They might not like that. And you want them to tell you the real history, not just come up with what they call AI hallucinations.
Yeah. So support the Kickstarter, or you might be cursed.
Exactly. Oh, that's what I should. If you come to this page and don't support it, you will be cursed. Maybe.
Exactly. I think that's a good marketing plan, right? It's it's the way to do it.
Yeah, I'd also like to mention, just regarding technology, we're also working with a augmented reality designer, and we're always ready to try to embrace the latest thing. During the pandemic, we went online, and of course, all the ghost hunting tools, and the Ghost of the City is great. And we had this fellow make St. Anne's Church exist again in AR. That's like a haunted site that's just a ruin, and so it's a park. And it was kind of amazing to just hold up your phone and like, oh my God, this is what the church looked like, and it looks like it's actually there. So there's so much potential in the future to integrate these types of technology in ghost tours and this type of haunted experience. So I'm really happy to see what Dr. Mab has cooked up.
Yeah, and I've added the link on a little like ticker at the bottom of the screen, and I also posted it in the comments. So I recommend checking it out. There's you can support the app. You can also get some amazing art through there. So it's definitely worth the click and worth supporting. And I mean, if you're interested in the paranormal, you want to have those experiences, right? And this is something that allows you to do that. And I believe in it a lot. The rest of the Haunted Montreal team does too, and we hope that you guys will support and enjoy it when it's out in the world. We had first there was a shout out from Iron Meager. Thank you.
I love Entre deux Tombes. It's hilarious. It's just amazing how much effort they put into this and the editing, and it's just such a great YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm. We love seeing all the local, all the other local like paranormal channels, and hopefully we'll be able to do some collaborating at some point. I know I would love to. I'm sure both of you would as well. I just I have to get back to Montreal first. I'm a little ways away. And Gabriel, so we had talked about how we all either came upon Haunted Montreal, or in Donovan's case started it, but I guess we could get a little bit into how we met, although there's not too much more to add. Like for me, I met Donovan at the tours, and I just kind of cold emailed him being like, let me collaborate with you, please. But Dr. Mab, you had mentioned how we met through NaNoWriMo, so that was a little bit different. We met before Haunted Montreal, like a year or something.
Yeah,
ish.
something like that.
Yeah. We're both writers, which is why we take November off we have 2 months that we take off, July and November. And July is just for a holiday, whereas November is for NaNoWriMo. So we're not really relaxing much. We're doing a different kind of work, and just nose to the grindstone with our writing, trying to write 50,000 words in a month. That's what happens in November.
Wow.
Yeah, Harley, please do look and check out the Kickstarter, because you can get some early rewards and all those good things. So is there anything else you want to add about the app, Dr. Mab? Because I know we're going to get into spooky stories, but I want to make sure that you say all the things you want to about this, because I want everyone to know.
I think you've said all the things I was going to add,
Okay.
and so much better. I think I'm too close to it. But even if the Kickstarter doesn't work, I'll still be trying to finish it and
just suffering a little more.
Yeah, just a bit more suffering, and we're artists. We're used to it.
Exactly. Yeah, so definitely check it out. Link is in the comments. And it runs until the end of the month, right? The Kickstarter goes till
There's
the 30th?
8 days left.
Okay, 8 days. So get in on it while you can. You have 8 days. You've got some time. All right. So I was thinking that the entertainment portion of this live stream would be each of us telling some of our own personal stories, because I know that that's what people always ask for when you are a teller of ghost stories, of ghosty history. They want to know what has actually happened to you. First, I have to show this comment. Thank you for supporting. I would say that maybe Ouija Live is not a good idea, and one of my stories is actually based around that. So good intro. So I think Dr. Mab, you said that you haven't really had an experience, right? So
I've never, as far as I can remember, met ghosts. The only paranormal experiences I have is getting information that I shouldn't know. Like many years ago, I remember turning to my then roommate and telling her that, oh, so-and-so is pregnant. So-and-so was living at the other end of the country. We hadn't talked in a few weeks, and she didn't learn she was pregnant until a month later.
Oh.
But she was.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So she must have gotten pregnant around the time that I figured, which is kind of funny, because when she called me, I said, and told me she was pregnant, my reaction was, yes, I know.
Oh my God.
And she was like,
I mean, that's a pretty good experience, though, just in terms of totally unexplainable.
And a few days ago, I was thinking about how Donald Solonen was dead, and I was thinking, and then I thought, oh no, I'm thinking of Christopher Plummer. And the next day, they announced his death.
Uh-oh.
So it's
I hope
probably just a coincidence.
I hope you never think about my death, Dr. Matt.
It's probably just a coincidence, but confirmation bias. But the kind of thing that happens to me from time to time.
I will very much pay attention to any sort of assumption that you make moving forward. Donovan, do you want to, or did you have any other ones that have come up, or is that?
That's about it. My supernatural life is very boring.
It's locked into the fiction world mostly.
Exactly.
Except when you briefly have moments of being Nostramamus.
Yeah.
Donovan, now I know that you have some, and I know there's at least one that you don't wish to talk about, but what are some others you'd like to bring up? Maybe less horrifying.
Yeah, so I mean, I consider myself kind of a ghost agnostic, so I'm not really 100% sure if they exist or not. And I'm okay with that. I think it's actually a good position to be in as the owner of the company, because I can relate to both sides, the skeptics and the true believers, and those on the fence. And so, I mean, first of all, this is the question everyone always asks. Like, tell us about your own ghost story, especially at our haunted pub crawl. We do a little session at the end where people share their stories. And so I always like to share the story of what happened at the London Dungeon when I was running the entertainment side of things back in the 90s. And it's important to note that it's not even a real dungeon. It was the underside of London Bridge train station. But this was a Victorian building, very arched brickwork and that type of stuff. Originally, it was used for stables and warehousing and things like that. But anyways, it was converted into this tourist attraction. And so my job was to, in the morning, open the building, turn on all of the power, all of the effects. It was very complicated. There was sound effects, smoke machines, holograms, fireballs, like everything. But there was also a lower tech element, which was simply lighting these church candles, like, the big thick ones you light at a church to, pray for someone or whatever. And on many occasions when I came to work in the morning, these candles would be relit because, of course, I would blow them out at the end of the night before going home. And so, I thought, well, how are they lit again? Because I blew them out. And so I would be very clear to remember blowing them out. And yet they would be relit in the morning sometimes. And there was no one there at night. And so I thought, okay, someone's maybe playing a trick on me here. Who has the keys? And so I went through my list of who has the keys. There's the boss. I'm like, no, she's not. It's not her. She hates leaving her office to go into the dungeon, which is dusty. It's rat infested, the whole bit. So I thought it's not her. Then I thought, okay, maybe it's the technician. And I thought, no, he's like a raging alcoholic. He never comes here unless there's an emergency. So I doubt it's him. And then I thought maybe it's one of my deputies, who would cover my role when I had my days off. And so I talked to my deputies and they said, no, it's not us, but we've noticed the same thing, like these candles relighting by themselves. And so I would actually do tests to measure it and how long does it take for a candle to burn? Were I to leave it burning all night, would it be, basically out in the morning because it burned itself out? And so it just didn't make sense that these candles kept relighting. And so then I started doing historical research, and I found out that the present site of the dungeon was used as an air raid shelter in World War II. And sure enough, a bomb had landed right in that area where the candles were relighting. It was near the Jack the Ripper experience, and 52 people died in that bomb during the Blitz. And so then I thought, okay, well, if this is something paranormal, which again, I'm not 100% sure, maybe someone was pranking me or who knows, maybe these people want to be remembered. And that's why these candles keep getting relit. And that was like one of the weirdest experiences I've ever had that, again, it seems very paranormal, but at the same time, because I'm on the fence, there's always something in the back of my mind. Was it, maybe that deputy was lying to me, or maybe the manager had a prankster side I wasn't aware of. I don't know. But the sad thing is the whole dungeon moved to another location because they built this thing called the Shard, like this gigantic sort of shard-like skyscraper. I think it's the tallest one in London. And so, that history's now gone. And so I don't know what sort of weird stuff's happening in the Shard, but it would be interesting to check it out one day.
Well, I mean, I'll be in London in a couple months, so I'm going to add that to my list. Shard investigation. That's so interesting, though, and I like that you say paranormal, agnostic, because that's absolutely how I would classify myself too. What I always say to people is because I've had friends who will say it is always a mass hallucination anytime someone is seeing something. that doesn't seem logical to me. My idea is that there have been a lot of things throughout history that have not been explained until we explain them. So that's my view on the paranormal. I absolutely believe that things are happening and that people are seeing apparitions and things like that and having auditory experiences. I just think we haven't explained what that is yet. And it might be, it might be ghosts as we define a ghost, or it might be something totally different. I think the one thing that you can't really deny is that like, people are seeing things, they're hearing things, they're having strange experiences, and it's not always mass hallucination because sure there's some level of you have something like the Tower of London, right?
Yes.
Staying in London where people, it's widely known that something is happening there, that maybe someone saw something that has this history. So you could attribute some of that to people going in there and either making it up or getting so excited and an adrenaline rush that they think they see something. But there are too many cases of locations where one person has a story and they're totally disconnected from another person, and that other person has the same story. So how do you explain that, right?
Yeah, another example that I found really crazy. It's like I said, we did this paranormal investigation at the Notman house, and the attic was also like reputed to be quite haunted, a very creepy place. And so there was one of the mediums there, and she was very like sensitive. And I was there watching her, and she was like literally going like, "Oh, I can feel it. Okay, it's on the right. Okay, it's moving to the left. Okay," and she would describe this spirit moving around, and there was nothing there. And so I was like, really? Okay, whatever. But then I saw the video, and there were orbs flying exactly where she was describing them, and I thought, oh my god, that's incredible. But then again, there's always that niggling, and I'm like, was this like doctored somehow? Could someone have done something to make it look like this? And this is why I just love it. It's so mysterious. It's just such a puzzle, and so it's really amazing to see anytime a story emerges like that, what might be behind it.
Yeah, I agree for sure. We have a hello from the West Coast.
Hello.
Hello. And thank you so much for watching. I always am so excited to see people who aren't from Montreal watching because, it's like I think that these stories are so great that anyone could enjoy them. But a lot of the time, with, Haunted Montreal and being location focused, you get a lot of people from Montreal watching. So it's always nice to see people from outside of this area tuning in.
We should go to the old courthouse in L'Assomption.
Yeah, I want to do investigations so bad, and I know we've had requests from people that we do that. We've trust us. We've talked about it. We've sent out letters and have not had much luck. So I think that's another thing to try to really hone in on once we're all in the same city for a long period of time, just to finally nail something down and do like a French and English investigation for the channel, because we all want to do that so bad. All right, so I think is it my turn for ghost stories?
Yes,
I think it is.
Okay. So I used to not really have any, and I'll try to summarize this because I've had more in recent years. To start off, my dad is what my mom and I have always called a paranormal dampener. Anytime something is going on, if he goes into that space, it's going to stop. And he has some of the craziest stories from when he was younger. One including his ex-wife who was being plagued by a entity that looked like a satyr. And when he came, she was able to see this. He couldn't see anything. But whenever he would walk towards this entity, it would back away. So he has a lot of these experiences being told that he's, pushing the paranormal away. So when I was growing up, my parents and I, we're all agnostic. We're not, a religious family. We're all artists. And so like I would kind of want to have something happen. I was always really interested in it. The only things that ever did happen occurred when my dad wasn't around. So I had two small incidents in our house on, strangely enough, Elm Street in Winnipeg. Yeah, we lived on Elm Street. One was a one-off thing where I was, my mom and I were like getting ready for something, and we both heard chimes, and I heard it, but I wasn't going to say anything. I was probably like 6 years old, and I don't have a lot of memories, but I do remember this, hearing it, and it was just sort of like, it was like it was right by my head, but not loud the way something would be if it was right by your head, if you know what I mean. And I think I've heard this kind of similar thing from people who have had paranormal auditory experiences. And so I remember just sort of looking at her, and then she says to me after a minute, did you hear something, Holly? And I'm like, yeah. And we both heard the same thing, but there was, the only thing that could have made a sound similar were these chimes near our door. And my dad, we were like, are you home? Dad, are you home? And he was not home yet. So it made no sense that we would have heard those. But the more regular one I had when I was little was my mom would read to me every night. We're, big readers, writers. And so we would lie in my bed, and she'd be lying beside me, and she'd be reading to me. And as it got later, so I don't know, like getting into the evening, the sun was setting and she'd be reading to me, we would hear marbles rolling across the floor above us. We were in like a 3-story house, and there were not marbles. There was no other kid. Like, I was the only kid there. There wasn't anyone up there. And we would just hear them like it was, a dozen marbles or so just rolling back and forth across this floor. And we wound up having a friend who was very sensitive to these things come into the house, and she said that there was a child up there. And again, it's important to look into the history. So later on, we talked to people on the street, because this was one of those streets where people would settle and have their family and live for like a very, very long time, like to the end of their days, and then their kids would inherit the houses and stuff. So people had been there for a very long time. And we talked to someone who told us that there had been a child who had died in the house. So that could have been the marbles. They also said there's an old woman who sat in the armchair on our 3rd floor, but I never saw anything. I've never seen anything. I've only ever heard things. And then I have 2 more stories, which is so, because I was the person who never had these stories, and now suddenly I have all these stories. But just, I'm gonna show a couple comments first. I would absolutely love to work with you, Harley. I think that you would as well, Dr. Mab, right? Like, that would be awesome. So we'll have to figure something out. And oh, I'm so glad you love the stories. I'm very happy, by the way, to see everyone here commenting. It's so nice. Okay, so my recent story, I'm traveling right now. I went to California in near, where's it called? It's near Anaheim, and there's this place called I think it's Black Star Canyon. And some people know this as like a hot spot for cryptids. So if you look it up, like lots of cryptid sightings. My friend who I do a podcast with, she and I went there thinking maybe we'll see something. Late at night, highway, no lights or anything. We brought her dog, and so she and her now husband and their dog were walking behind me, and I was a little bit in front with my light, and I had my EMF reader, and we were just, like, what's going to go on here? And she told me that there was only one paranormal story in the area, but she didn't tell me what it was. She was just like, yeah, there's one ghost, but everything else seems to be cryptids. And I'm going to forget the name of this ghost, but anyone who knows Black Star Canyon, they probably know about this ghost. So anyway, I'm walking ahead without any knowledge of what paranormal entity could be there. And I suddenly got, I was a little bit freaked out because it was dark, but I really wanted to experience something. And I walk ahead, and then I just got this sort of energy of okay, I'm going to go ahead, and I'm just going to explore and get away from them because they're talking and they've got the dog and they're hanging out and stuff. And I'm going to go to a quiet place. I knew I was near water, because they had wanted to stop near this body of water, and I knew that I shouldn't like go down the path because I could like actually fall in a lake. So I go ahead a bit, and suddenly I hear humming in my ear, like very clear, like 4 notes. I have it recorded where I say the notes on our podcast, but it was something like, you know, just like a very quick little thing. It sounded like a little girl right in my ear. We're on the highway. I was looking around, like, was there a car that maybe there was a kid that it would have, you know, like I would have heard that the way it was. There were no cars at that point at all. It was late. It was dark. Absolutely nothing. Just little girl humming right here. Like I had the same thing when I was back on Elm Street. And I turned around and it's just Jenna, my podcast partner, has the recording of this where I turn around and I just say, nope, didn't like that. So I start walking back quickly. I'm like, we'll get in the car and then I'll explain it to you. So I explain it to her. And she says, oh, that's really creepy because of the ghost that's around here. I'm like, okay, you have to tell me more. What? So it was the ghost of a woman who drowned her children. So I was hearing a little girl humming in my ear. And that was, I didn't want to go ghost hunting in California anymore after that. So that's my my most recent one, and as I mentioned, I do have a Ouija board one, but that I don't know if my partner would really want me talking about it because it involves some very personal things with him. But all I will say of that is, don't use Ouija boards. Lots of people say that. I sort of lost track of it for a while and was like, let's just try it out. Like, don't. It's never good. It's not good. Don't use Ouija boards. That's my PSA.
What if you use it with your dad?
I don't know, but I called my dad after we had our experience and he was like, what is wrong with you? I've told you not to do this. I was like, yeah, so I've had some stuff going on. Oh yeah, and the Queen Mary. We did go to the Queen Mary and that was amazing. We didn't have any experiences, but I would love to stay in the haunted room. I would like to do that, but I think you have to book it very far in advance. All right, so I think that's our stories. And I want to do a bit of a Q&A. So I know we have 7 people here watching. And so if any of you have questions, I know you've been asking some throughout, but if you have questions for me, Dr. Mab, or Donovan, now is the time. And also if you want to ask in French, please feel free. I won't be able to answer in French, but these 2 will. We'll give you a second to write, although I know you're never supposed to have any dead air, so I'll just do my best to ramble. Or if either of you have any ramblings that you're up for doing while we wait for questions to come in.
There was a time when I lived in Quebec City, there was a house that was supposed to be haunted. And it was this big house at the corner of 2 main boulevards. And they used to rent student apartments there, like student rooms. And one of my friends lived in the room that was supposed to be haunted. And she didn't live in that room that long. And another friend slept over there one night. And she felt something too. And strangely enough, that house doesn't exist anymore. It got torn down and replaced by Harvey's. So you
I find... Sorry, continue. I don't want to interrupt you.
No, that's okay. Yeah, it's just strange when they decide to get rid of those places. Like when they build
I was gonna say, through the blogs, Donovan, like there are a lot of places that have burned down or been torn down. That does happen a lot.
Yeah, and that's the question: is like, what happens to the ghosts? If you demolish their building, do they just disappear, or will they manifest in the new building? And at least in the stories I've researched, probably the most famous one would be Dugan House, McGill University, which was actually built with the recycled stones of Simon McTavish's old castle, which was reputed to be haunted. And so now you've got these haunted stones in a new building, and of course, there's tons of paranormal stories out of Dugan House. So I think that even if a place is demolished or burns down or is rebuilt upon, the odds are those spirits might still remain, maybe in a different manifestation.
I agree, and this actually connects with this question here about having any paranormal experiences after Ouija. One of the things I can say about that was that we started off, and by the way, my partner is like not just. I mean, he's very ghost agnostic, almost to like, very much disbelieving it. But he, it's kind of like X-Files. He'd like to believe, so he wants to chase experiences if he does have the chance, which is why we were doing this. And he did have some experiences which he actually won't even tell me about at his apartment. But one of the things with this this entity, whatever we were talking to, because I believe now that it was something. If demons are a thing, I think that's what it was. It was saying, however, that it was not in the apartment that he was in. It was from before. So I do believe that there can be ghosts that sort of stay either in the bricks, the wood of a place, or they can stay in the land of a place. So like you could have something live on after a place is demolished or move with the demolished materials, just from what I've seen. I think that's absolutely possible. And Donovan, this one's a good one for you. Rosemont stories.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any stories in Rosemont, La Petite Patrie right now on my list. I do have a list of about 500 ghost stories. And of course, I've published about 105. And so we're always looking for more. But, I really need to sort of move further north, further east. Because these are areas where there are a lot of ghost stories, but I haven't done a lot of research into them. Probably the nearest one to Rosemont La Petite Patrie would be a story called The Gray Man. And this one, we blogged it, but the person who had experienced it asked us to take the blog down because she wasn't super comfortable with it, even though they'd made a television program about it. But I think this would be maybe more Outremont area, but certainly up towards the north. But I'll definitely keep my ears open for more stories from areas like Rosemont, Petite Patrie, Saint Michel, Montreal North. Even Pointe-aux-Trembles has stories that I'm aware of that I haven't blogged yet. And one of the most recent things I've been looking into is called the Pigsty Cemetery, which was essentially where they would bury the victims of the Saint Jean de Dieu mental asylum. So these would be the Plessis orphans. These would be Indigenous children being experimented on, etc.
The Duplessis stuff, I would love to see more on that, because like especially with the what's it called, like the school out there near Mercier that's been pretty much torn down. That like there's a wealth of stuff there, I would imagine.
Yeah, and so what's happening right now is the SAQ is trying to build or expand their warehouse on the site of the Pigsty Cemetery. And, the Mohawk mothers are protesting this along with the Duplessis orphans. I work closely with, all sorts of victims of things that result in ghost stories. And this is the ironic thing about the ghost stories is, I was talking about bodies up on Mount Royal at the Allen Memorial for 15 years because a lady named Anne Diamond asked me to share the story, and then only last year it exploded, and now there's archaeological work, and everyone's involved, and so it's interesting to see how these ghost stories are related to real history. And so this is the case of Pigsty. So they're trying to build this warehouse on top of it. But what's especially shocking is the reason they call it the Pigsty Cemetery is because the nuns in charge, the Sisters of Providence, had a hog farm right there. And so, you know, they were burying children amongst a hog farm, and there's even like reports of them feeding the bodies to the hogs, you know? And so this is like
How Hannibal.
disturbing, you know. And so it's like, this is a site I am going to investigate soon. It's crazy.
Yeah, that would need some heavy investigation, I would imagine.
Yeah.
The cabin that Edward VIII used, that's very cool. I did not know that was involved. This is still the Queen Mary. I guess if you want to rent the the big haunted room B340, you have to be like pretty well known, because I know there's some YouTubers and stuff that go on there. But yeah, when I visited, they had like a window in, so we were able to look in and take pictures, but that was it. I did think you could still rent it, but I guess not. But it looks like we've got a wealth of stories here for you, Donovan, for Hochelaga.
Yeah, send it in, Iron Meager. I'd love to hear about that. Again, I don't have tons of stories from Hochelaga Maisonneuve, but I know that it is a very haunted neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. It's fairly old, and there's a feeling there. Like my partner, he's living there now. I've always lived in like NDG or Plateau. I was in Villeray for a while. But so I hadn't spent a lot of time in Hochelaga, but when I've been going there now that he's there, there's something palpable about that neighborhood, I would say. And you are probably gone already, but thank you for stopping by, Werda. It's good to see you. And we've got some more from Gabriel here.
Yeah, the Grey Nun's Mother is very, very haunted. We do cover that on our Haunted Downtown tour, but it's also been blogged, so you can read the blog. Yeah, the nuns are certainly still in the basement. There's a crypt down there. Concordia wanted to remove those bodies, but public health said, listen, a lot of them died of contagious diseases. This can actually reemerge if you unearth them, and there were precedents of that happening. And so they said, we're just going to leave them down there. We don't want any scarlet fever, cholera, smallpox, anything coming back to haunt us. So,
yeah, Montreal has had enough disease, I think. All right, so we're coming up on 3 o'clock your time, and the questions, comments have slowed down a bit. We've had a little fluctuation of people coming and going, so I think this is a perfect time to start to wrap things up here. If there's is there anything else that either of you would like to say before we sign out?
Well, I'd just like to invite anyone who's not in Montreal. If you ever come visit, please do attend one of our haunted experiences, because we'd love to see you.
Yeah, highly recommend. Dr. Mab?
And even if you're not in Montreal, tell us about your ghost stories in the comments of our videos.
Yeah, absolutely. And be sure to support the Kickstarter. Again, the link is in the comments. And thank you so much for stopping by. It's been really fun chatting with all of you, answering your questions. And I think this is definitely something we'd want to do again, right, guys?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be planning these again, and we'll hopefully do an investigation soon. I know there was one person who requested a specific investigation with Dr. Mab and I as guests, so we can probably set something like that up with Dom, and we'll be in touch with you for sure, Harley. So thank you, everyone. I hope that you have a spooky Saturday night, and we will be back again in August with more videos. Until then, head over to hauntedmontreal.com and read those blogs.
Bye.
All right. Bye.
Toodaloo.